Hello everyone. We are live on audio. Hopefully you're hearing us okay. Hello Jay. Wow, Jay, you've never been first in chat. Congratulations. Distinction. Hello, Manda. I'm sorry Jay beat you. Hey, Kai. Good to see you, Robert. Greg, hello. Mike. Everybody popping in the chat. We're going to kick off here in a couple of minutes. Still awaiting my co-hosts. You've been sitting here for a bit, Mike? Nice. Hello, Tracy. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in the chat early. Eddie, hey-o. Audio sound okay to everybody? If someone didn't have you working. Hello, Chris. Good to see you, 2000 Caesar. Yep. We got, man, all the Blue Box stuff is getting exciting. Thank you, Greg. All the Blue Box Con stuff is getting exciting. I saw the menu today for the, hello, Jerry. Saw the menu today for the food truck that we're going to have on Saturday. It looks fantastic. All the things are coming, lots of prep we're already doing here around the house. I had a call this week with Chandler, who will be running our huge ensemble game on Saturday, where our hope is to have at least 20 players simultaneously playing in this very interesting role-playing structured game. That should be a blast. Yes, Tracy. So we're going to be sending out some information for people that want to sign up. It's a fun role-play. Think of it like a council that is meeting to address critical issues for the kingdom, turned into a role-playing game with a chancellor and a speaker and then various delegates who are in the council. And it's going to be a role-playing game based on a fantasy setting. We'll be sending out notes and summaries, and people will be able to pick the council members that they would like to represent. And it's going to be a fun way for us, off with their heads, a fun way for us to get everybody involved. So it's not going to just be 4 to 6 people in a room. We're going to be able to get a bunch of the community together, and everyone that's not playing can stand around and watch and be a part of the delegation sort of cheering section. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to step upstairs for just a second. I'll be right back. Keep the chat entertained. Hello, Rachel. Didn't see you in there. August and Natasha, good to see you guys in the chat. I didn't see you earlier. Boba Kiln. Okay, no worries, but hey, going to see a play with the wife. Well, thanks for saying hi. Hello, Tracy. Thanks for jumping in. And thanks for all the encouragement in the chat last night. It was very much appreciated by you and by everyone else. All right, well, they should be in just a moment. We're going to have Robert joining us first, and then Vivi will be on just shortly after that. So excited to see Vivi tonight. We'll go ahead and kick off our intro, and we'll be live on video here in just a moment. I will do my best, Manda. I'm not sure how much I have left in the tank after last night. Sing your song, sing. Thanks, Pat. I should have prepped that. I could have done so much better if I would have prepped something. But it was still fun. Reading. I think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yes, Amanda. We need to add that one to the chat tonight. Yeah, it was fun because it's got that you're on the edge of the cliff and you have no idea if what's about to come out of your mouth is going to make any sense at all. That's always fun, or especially when you're like just making up a melody on the spot, and woo, that was fun. That's exactly correct. You speak sooth, Tracy.
Enemy spotted.
We need to add using our text RP as a source of inspiration to the discussion tonight, Amanda. That's what I mean. Oh, thank you, Tracy. It's the first time you've seen it. Yeah, we've had this for a couple weeks. It's our new intro feature. There's your Build-A-Master Crafter stadium. You've seen Anna's work, Mike's Overgord, all kinds of fun stuff. Welcome to Loremaster's Arcanum. All right, well, I got to figure out what to do here because neither of my co-hosts are with us, and I don't have a correct... Oh, there's Robert popping in now because I don't have correct views for just one person to pop up. There he is in the nick of time. And we're going to go ahead and go live on video in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome, Robert, and welcome to Loremaster's Arcanum, everyone. Good to have you here with us tonight. We're going to fix a couple of these views. This is LMA Rob 116, and there are already, I'm sure, people in the chat going, wait, where's Vivi? We were promised Vivi tonight. Don't worry, there will be a Vivi sighting this evening. She's going to be on with us in just a few minutes, and as we have discussed, she's going to be a regular co-host with us here, which we're super excited about.
Yes.
Last night you got the tux. Tonight you get the baseball cap and the Atari shirt. This is just how we're rolling today. Good afternoon. Good to see you, Patrick. Hey, good to see you, Tim. Thanks for playing with us tonight. And oh my goodness, yes, we had a fantastic evening last night. Hello, Vancouver by night. And the role play was phenomenal. The support from the chat was phenomenal. And Robert, I know you were on for most of the night, but it was a late night for you. We went till 9:30 my time, so that was 10:30 your time. But thanks for modding and being part of it, and very much appreciated all your support.
Yeah, it was a great show. I wish I was able. Normally, I would have been able to stay up longer, but it just still not quite fully 100%. So.
No worries. Yeah, that can take a minute to get over. Rob has mentioned to everyone that he had COVID coming back from GaryCon, and he's almost over it. Hello, Anaho. Good to see you, Rory. And tonight we're going to be talking about ways to revitalize your DMing. And of course, our play on words is to revivify your DMing. And we're going to jump right into it. We won't get into any announcements. Maybe we'll save some for the end, but we have a short hour show tonight. So we want to maximize the content and the value that we bring to you, our viewers. Look, this phrase "forever DM," it's actually one I just started hearing in the last year or so. Maybe it was around before that. I had not heard it. But the concept has always been around. In any group of players, going back even to when some of us played way, way long ago, you're always going to have those which either gravitate because they choose it or because they get pushed toward it into being the Dungeon Master. And the Dungeon Master role, hey, good, yep, good to, it's, sorry, I'm responding to the chat. Good to see everybody. It's a dumb statement, just your opinion. Yeah, I think I don't really love the phrase "forever DM" either, but I get it. I understand what it's speaking to. So we'll kind of talk about why that happens. But really our goal tonight is to help you, if you're a Dungeon Master, whether you Dungeon Master all the time or you're just getting started, with ideas for inspiration, particularly how to refresh, revitalize, or as we have coined the phrase, revivify, in honor of Vivi tonight, your DM stuff. Now, Rob, you've been DMing a long time, and I've got some things I want to show, but why don't you kind of kick us off tonight? As someone who has DM'd most of your life, and I guess maybe I should start. What percentage of the time do you think when you game, you're a player versus a DM?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, I was kind of laughing at the forever DM thing because I hear people call themselves forever DMs, and it's like, dude, you just started DMing about 5 minutes ago in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
I mean, I for the first 37 years or so, I was probably the DM 95% of the time. I mean, just because I had a very, whatever group of friends I had, I was the only one, most times I was the only one who could DM or who wanted to DM, and people just wanted to play. And so I would facilitate that. Ever since the COVID era came around, it's kind of flipped on me, and I've been enjoying playing a lot, and still DMing substantially, but not. The ratio is definitely changed heavily.
Yeah, and why is that? I mean, COVID, yes, but just a season of life, more opportunity to play with others who are DMing because it's all really a lot of virtual Zoom stuff now, or
yeah, I mean the opportunity's been there. There's been a lot more, having met a lot more people who want to DM. I mean, the interesting thing is a lot of the people that I'm playing with who are DMing for me are people who are still relatively new to it. I mean, they've been DMing for maybe the last 3 years, and I think one of the things is being able to actually play and get on that side of the table. And then there's also the matter of I find that I'm able to help a new DM out because I understand a lot of the things they're going through. So it helps stabilize their first table for them a bit.
Okay, that makes sense. And so with that, as you've gotten more into the playing, have you found that that's changed how you look at your DMing when you do get to have the opportunity to DM or not?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah. I mean, even back when I was, mostly DMing, if I ever had a chance to actually play with another DM, I'd always re-examine the things that I liked that they were doing, the things that I didn't like, things that might work for my game. One of the things that came into really, really crystal clear is, I wanted to become the DM that I'd like to have for me as a player. I wanted to make sure that, I was the things that I enjoyed and the things that I knew that I didn't like. I wanted to make sure that I was making when I was bringing my game to other people that I was conscious of those things and not falling into the same traps that I hated as a player.
What would be an example of one of those traps, Rob?
Railroading, utter railroading. I mean, it's kind of funny because I'm actually playing in a couple of things where they are planned adventure paths and such, and there's going to be a little bit of a railroad to a certain extent, and that's kind of a given when you're doing a set adventure. This is the adventure, this is what you're playing, and kind of thing. But in an open campaign where, theoretically it's supposed to be more sandbox, the second I feel like I'm being railroaded, problems start, because I just chafe at it. And I never do that to my players. My players, they can do whatever the heck they want. I will go where the players are going to go. I'll figure out how to adjust the adventure as necessary. Or if it turns out that, they just really are not engaging with the adventure, change it altogether. Because if it's not working for them, it's not working for them. I'm not going to force something on them just because this is the idea that I had.
Right.
Everyone needs to have fun, and I've learned to be flexible. I've learned what it means, because I have a friend who's one of those DMs who does so much preparation work. The problem comes in that when there's something that they didn't account for, they get flustered, and you can feel them trying to push you in the way that they thought you were going to be going.
Right, exactly. All right, so we are going to go ahead and bring Vivi in here. So there'll be a brief moment where the cameras look wonky, and then I'm going to switch to a different view, and they should all be right as rain. And here we go. All right. I think. All right, there she is. Let me fix the view just a little bit here for you, Vivi. Hello. All right, Blue Box fans, we are joined tonight by a familiar face. This is the DM's Quest, Vivi. They're still waiting to see you, Vivi, because your head is cut off on my view. There we go. There she is.
Oh, just kidding.
So good to see you. And, of course, you know the topic. Actually, the topic was your idea tonight. But before we jump back into it, everyone in the chat say hi to Vivi. Vivi, just give us a quick life update. What you been up to?
I've been enjoying my new job and sleeping and resting,
Wait.
which is so nice.
Sleep?
Yeah, I work evenings now, so I don't work nights. So, like, I'm home typically, like, the last couple times I've been home around, like, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I get to sleep at nighttime, which is, like, chef's kiss. I'm so rested after 14 years. So, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. It's really nice to work in the community with people who need help in the community, other than like working in palliative, which is like really awful and very stressful. So, I mean, it's a nice change. It's a nice change up. I really like it. I love it.
Yeah, well, that's great. You look great. You look rested.
I do look. I don't look like a
You
trash
look
panda.
revivified. You do.
I'm looking positively scruffy in comparison.
No, you look fun, Robert.
No, Robert always looks good. And Vivi, I am the scruffy one. Last night I was in a tux. Tonight it's a baseball cap and an Atari's 80s t-shirt. This is genuine, by the way.
How dare you not wear a tuxedo when
I should have, yes. This is not a reproduction. This is original 80s Atari shirt here. So
Oh, just kidding.
well, it's not. I didn't own it in the 80s, but I easily could have. All right, so we only have about 45, 50 minutes to get into this topic, so I want to jump right into it. But Vivi, of course, it's so exciting to have you back with us. Vivi will be a regular co-host here on LMA as often as schedule allows. You know, we all have real life, and so this will allow on times where Robert can't be here. I'm not going to be by my lonesome when Vivi can't be here. We'll sit.
Or when John can't be here, and then Robert and I are just.
I would never allow such. No, I know the chicanery that would occur. I could not allow such a thing.
We will be on our best behavior.
Yes.
I can't promise what level best.
Yeah, that's not really reassuring. No, that brings me no comfort, Rob. Not at all.
He has no faith in us, Robert.
Yes, chicanery, he says. Ancient cough. Thank you, Auguste. All right, so let's jump into the topic. Vivi, you brought it up. Why did you suggest this as a topic? You know, the idea that people who DM a lot, and the poll, I didn't see, what was the conclusion of the poll? Did you see it, Robert?
Oh, I missed it.
I saw 7 people vote for sometimes. DM sometimes.
Oh, yes, sometimes, yeah.
I completely missed the poll when it was up.
Thank you, Amanda. Oh, she's the best. She's just right on it all the time.
All the time, yes. She is the greatest mod in Twitch universe. Okay, so the poll showed there sometimes won by 7.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Did I screw that up, or is it okay?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, so Vivi, why did you suggest this topic?
Because I've been DMing that for a very long time, but I just find like there is essentially like issues in the sense where, like, for example, okay, like we have an ongoing like campaign that we play when everybody's around, but a lot of the times too, like, you know, real life stuff, people aren't available all the time, and then we try to do these one shots, and then, you know what I mean, and then sometimes you're kind of run out of ideas of like how can you make a one shot, or just, and in general, like if you're starting a new game and you've been DMing for a very long time, as like you and Robert, like I don't have that much experience, but even just in that one shot experience, I found sometimes I'm just like, what do I do? Like how can I make this a little bit different? And we're not just having like, you know, a binder full of like characters. Is there a way that you can have characters and have a one shot where it's more flexible, where people are coming in and out and you can continue it on, and these characters can grow, instead of just having, again, like these, like I have a binder full of characters that I've made for one shots that just sit there and like collect dust. Do you know what I mean? Like I was going through all of my stuff and I was like, wow, there's so many characters in here that I wish I could like develop more or whatever. And they just, or had like really cool backstories, and they kind of just like died, you know, like just went into like the the vault of your binder. So yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting.
Well, it is. And when was the last one shot that you ran?
A couple weeks ago. It was like one of my last sessions that we played. Because of my new work schedule, I don't have a lot of D&D time, so I ran a one shot because we were missing some players, and then I had to introduce a couple more people into that same one shot. So literally maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And so in that kind of one shot, you found yourself with some of those questions, like wondering, how do I move this along? What do I do with these characters when I'm done? Or maybe
it was because we had done so many one shots, and I was like, okay, like how can I make a one shot that is a little bit more flexible, in the sense of like, kind of like, I like the idea of like Friday Night Crusades that Robert does. Like that's a great outlet for people, because you know what I mean, schedule wise, maybe people aren't available every Friday or whatever. And the way that Robert kind of runs it, I mean, go ahead, Robert, interrupt me.
No, you're keep going.
But like, it's such a great idea in the sense where he can just have characters come in and out, do you know what I mean, of the game, and still continue on a story, which is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if anybody else has had that issue with like running one shots in place of a campaign.
My question is, for your one shots, every time you run a one shot, are your players creating new characters, or do they have their characters that they're...
Beforehand, we had been all just making new characters every single time. Mm-hmm. This time, I think I've created a one shot where like they could still reuse their characters, which is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas, and this is talking about, you know, borrowing things from other DMs. Jay has his campaign world, and he's got, you know, I mean, granted, it's got 40 something years of history, but he's got different groups. And sometimes he's got people who have multiple characters. Even the guest players will have multiple characters that he'll bring in, and he'll divide them. You know, they'll bring in this group of people, and they'll have, when they're playing with these people, they'll have this character. So one of the things that you can do, I mean, if you've got a stable of NPCs with backstories, you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, one of the things you can do is suggest, you know, to have your players create the characters, you know, find which ones they like working together as a group, and then for different one shots, figure out which of those groups you want to pull out. You've got one of your NPCs. One of your NPCs has a problem. Keep it simple. Don't, you know, and maybe the problem sounds simple and it just gets weird.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I mean, listen, you know, there's plenty of things to be done that, you know, can make a one shot worth, especially if you have an NPC with a, you know, a backstory that you've gone into. Let them dig into that. You know, let them figure out what's going on, and it'll also give them a chance for those PCs to start working together and getting used to playing those their PCs together, those particular group, which will also help take some of the burden off you, because suddenly they're bringing their own flavor to it. as opposed to like reinventing the wheel every single time with some
Right.
random set of characters.
Right, because that's what I was finding too. I'm just like, this is getting exhausting. Like, I don't want to have to like reintroduce, and then that takes time too, right? Like, kills time in your session, trying to reintroduce and build these relationships or develop these relationships between your characters, like the characters in your game. And that, like, again, eats up in your time. And maybe if people aren't have unlimited time to play a game, like let's just say only 2 hours, 3 hours, like to run a one shot, it takes a while to get started, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those NPCs, as Robert was saying, can be so useful because you're always looking for NPCs. And so I keep all those character sheets in a separate folder, and I can always refer back to them when I want to introduce, a character or a concept into the game that helps kind of round it out and makes it more real. You can use them for important NPCs, side quest NPCs. But I think this idea that you have the flexibility where you're not recreating it every time is important. And then, some modules you buy will have pre-gen. So, for example, you work with a lot of Carlos's stuff. Many times he'll put pre-generated characters in the one-shots that you can play. And then that brings its own kind of freedom. Players just kind of look it over, and if it's truly a one-shot, that's a good way to do it. All right, so then what other ways do we see that you can, if you're let's say you're DMing in a long-term campaign? As I've got many of them here that I've run. Robert, I know you've run many. Vivi, what's the longest campaign you've run as a DM?
As a DM, probably a year.
Okay.
Probably as long. Yeah. Because luckily in my group, we have a couple of DMs, which is nice. So we do rotate around. So we're not one person is always stuck as the forever DM. And we usually have conversations day of session. It's like, hey, do you feel like running the game, or are you like tired? And they're like, no, I'm tired. It's like, okay, well, I'll take it over and whatever. So, I mean, I'm very blessed. I've been told I've been very blessed with my group. We're consistent. Obviously before my job changed, but we would meet every Friday and we would play from about 4:30 p.m. until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning every Friday. So
Nice.
with multiple DMs in person. So I mean, I've been told I've had like the dream group for a very long time.
That's fun.
Listen, I would, that is a dream. It's a very nice dream.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm very fortunate, and that was my first ever group when I first started playing D&D. So we're all diehards.
That's awesome. Long sessions. Let me pull up an article here that I think can be a thought starter for us. And I did a little bit of research today. And, we're not really talking about writer's block per se, but it really does, when you're doing long-term campaigns and coming up with ideas, or maybe even if it's one-shots, and what's another idea for a good one-shot. And I found this from Gnome Stew. And as always, when I bring these things up, I have not vetted everything on their site. I don't know if there's objectionable content here. I do not know what their political views are. I just Googled some ideas and I like the article. So that's the only thing I'm espousing is the content of this article. But when you look at it, it's pretty interesting because the idea of writer's block is not too far from, the actual idea of a DM getting story block, ideas on where to take their game, their campaign. And for those who haven't suffered with this condition, it's when you sit down to write and nothing comes up. So we've all felt this even when you're DMing, ideas that come up, how can you spawn it? Sometimes you feel super creative, at least that's my experience. Other times you feel a little stale. And what I really want to talk about for the DMs out there tonight is how can you, when you're feeling stale, when you're feeling stuck, move it along, get new ideas, get fresh inspiration. But Robert, Vivi, the thing I was kind of surprised when I saw this is if you scroll down, they had this really interesting article on a link between creative types and vulnerability and anxiety. And I thought that was so interesting. So I kind of clicked it and read it. And this is from, again, Tangible Day. Same disclaimer applies. Anything I show you today, I don't know all that's on the site. I just read this article. But it talks about some figures on mental health and anxiety levels. And you know what? This is creative. Anytime you're doing something creative, it puts you out there in some manner, right? So whether you're producing a piece of art, whether you're singing a song, whether you're writing something, I mean, have you ever written a fictional piece and then let somebody read it and proofread it? At least for me, it's a very
daunting. Oh yeah.
It's a very,
yeah, for sure.
So I thought that was kind of cool. And they have an example here. So here's a common example. When you were a child, you might have imagined an imaginary friend, used toy figures, created play scenarios with them. Even though you understood these were just make-believe, your mind was processing information from a different angle than how most people, i.e. adults, saw these things. While that's a broad example, using imagination to cope with situations, ultimately your creativity makes your work unique and gives you power over the physical world. And it goes on to talk about stress triggers and people who are creative tending to have a higher level of either anxiety or vulnerability, and they don't really they can't identify exactly why that is, but there is a statistical correlation. Robert, Vivi, any thoughts on that?
Vivi, you want to go first?
I mean, it totally makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, as the DM, you're like, yes, as D&D, like I said, and I've said this many times before, the reason why I love D&D is that people get to use their imagination, which is something that you don't get to do as an adult, really, outside of mundane your work life, right? So I mean, and D&D is a collaborative story tell, but you're the DM, so you're the one who's kind of driving the story and setting the tone and setting the scene. There's lots of times in general I've DM'd and I'm like, I don't know if that's good enough, and I know, John, you've said that after games a lot of times too, where you're like, I was poo today, and we're like, no, we had so much fun. But again, like, it's a vulnerability thing, right? Like, you're being vulnerable by trying to create a story and in hopes that your players will enjoy it and have fun, and make things make sense in the long haul. Like, for example, I know I did a homebrew one shot that turned into a longer campaign, and that was my longest campaign that I ran. And I think a lot of the issues that I ran into and the anxieties and things like that, like, was the drive of the story good enough? Was the big bad good enough? Was his story good enough? You know what I mean? And it developed and changed over time, and sometimes I felt confident and I felt, oh yeah, this is great, and I have all these ideas, and then some days I'm just like, I got nothing, I'm tapped out, I got nothing. And you try to wing it, and those are the days where you're like, I'm so sorry, my DMing was shit today, but and they always, and it's so funny. And I don't know if you guys have had the same thing. I know, John, you have a few times, because we've all said it to you too, but regardless of our own anxieties, typically the outcome is usually good and a positive receptive from the players that we're DMing for.
Yeah, well said.
Every single Friday. So. I mean, it's a curious thing, because as a DM, you really you're putting yourself out there, and the DM, for better or for worse, right or wrong, you're going to feel like you're taking on a responsibility for your players' fun. I mean, they have some responsibility of their own, but you're the one who is at least coming up with the basis of the story, and especially nowadays with all that's out there and all the media that's available, and all these movies and shows and such, there's a pressure to have that singular story every single time that's going to rock their world, and that's not this game. I mean, it's great when it happens and you can have that kind of thing, but you need to realize that not every session needs to be this epic, massive, world-wrecking thing. Sometimes the simplest stories and the simplest adventures are the best ones. It's the presentation, it's how you present it to your players, how you respond to what your players are giving you, and how your players respond to what you're giving them. But yeah, I mean, there's definite anxiety every time you get behind the screen or however you're doing it, and you're hoping that the players are going to enjoy what you're putting out there. But I think the key to remember, and this is the hardest thing to remember, is your players are there to have fun. They're predisposed to having fun.
Right, exactly right.
That's they're looking forward to this. So breathe. Take that, I always make sure that I take that breath, and I realize that, okay, no, if I put something out there, they're going to want to cling on to it, And I mean, some things may work better than others, but they want to go along with you. They're not going to be sitting there saying, "Oh hell, I mean, not again."
Right. Yeah. No, that's well said, Robert. And ultimately, this can be a challenge for all types, not just those who are new to DMing. I think Pat66 said sometimes with more experienced DMs, there can be kind of a been there, done that feeling. I don't really get that feeling most of the time. For me, I don't know that I have really anxiety before a game. What I feel before almost every game is a sense of obligation and desire for the players to have a fantastic time. And so I put pressure on myself to just, I really want to deliver a great time every time. Now, to your point, Robert, it doesn't have to be epic. If you look at many of the sessions in long-term campaigns, they will be moving relationships along slowly, moving plots and things along story. They can just be piddling around. Tears of Arid has now gone 4 straight sessions, 14 hours of gaming. No, I'm sorry. Closer to 16, 17 hours of gaming without any combat. And it's just the way the game has gone, and it's been fantastic. I sometimes feel more pressure with, like last night, one-shots, where you get a specific group of people together, or like Vivi, when we did the St. Jude charity one-shot, and you got Richard Baker on, and all these, and you got all, like, I feel a little pressure in those because I want,
for sure.
I want so badly to deliver this. And you were very kind afterwards. I think I'm going to quote you, and you could tell. I think you said it was the most fun one shot you'd ever played in. I think
100%. Because again, like I said, with one shots, it's hard to grow those relationships naturally in a time, and especially it's like one thing. If you're DMing outside of stream, right? Though there's not as much pressure to kind of whatever. If you don't finish, you don't finish. Or if it goes longer, it's not a big deal. When you're dealing with streaming and like time restraints and stuff like that, that's kind of where you kind of run into the issue, because you don't, again, want to railroad your players, but you also want things to develop naturally. And I think that's kind of the hard part of like DMing a long-term campaign as opposed to a one-shot, because you're trying to compact everything into like a small little nice package that's like finished in like 6 hours, which realistically, you know what I mean? Like if you really want to get the true feeling of a game, like 6 hours isn't really enough, to like grow your characters and things like that. Or if you play a character and you really enjoy that character, and you want to develop their story more. But also, Robert, I'm gonna call you every time I need to DM because you're gonna bring my anxiety down. You're like, oh, it's okay. Like,
hey, you got my number. I'm always there for a pep talk.
I know. We have a question from Amanda here. It says, if you're a DM with anxiety, how do you stop the panic that will come when your players go off the rails and of what you had planned? John, I feel like you have a lot of experience.
Yeah, well, and I think that is Vivi, that's probably where experience helps the most in DMing. I don't like player right turns and left turns. They excite me. I love it when it happens. But I can recall what that felt like, and I think I really ascribe to a strategy of DMing. If you're trying to create something structured, if you're doing a true open sandbox, then you just surrender to that, because it's always going to be that, and that has its own charm and its own. I've seen a diagram that's done where it's essentially a multi-branch type of process where you have key points that are going to occur, but there are many different ways that those can occur and different side routes that can happen. So I like to plan for as many contingencies as possible, not because I'm feeling anxiety, but because I want to be able to deliver a great experience that has some thought in it for the player. So I think ahead of time, let's take Tears of Arid, for example, on Tuesday or Sunday, I have an idea of like the top 5, 6 things they might do. So, Amanda, I'll jot down just for myself some thoughts of, well, if they do that, oh, here's how I can connect that, tie that together. I can ad-lib that, absolutely. But for me, I find my ad-libbing is good, but if I have a little bit of prep I've done with that ad-libbing, it tends to be a little bit better for me. And so that helps me feel a sense of, okay, I've got a pretty good context for where this is going. Then aside from that, just taking that breath that Robert mentioned a moment ago and letting go. When you can get to the point as a DM where you just don't care how you look. I'll give you guys a real life example. I was on a call today, a work Zoom call, And you guys kind of know what I do. And somebody from my work looked at me and said, "So did you do anything interesting last night, John?" And it was just us on the Zoom call. And I'm like, "Yeah, just, because we have some stuff going on around the house here." And I'm like, "Well, I heard you went to the opera last night." And I was like, "What?"
Pardon me?
I was like, "What?" And I said, "Where did you hear that?" I kind of started laughing because, of course, I knew what she meant. And her husband had been, he was looking to do some Twitch streaming and was searching around on D&D Twitch channels and found Blue Box. And he goes, "Whoa, I know that guy. That's your boss." And so yeah, it was very, very, and yes, it's, and so, and then he said, one, he thought it was super cool, and he said, forgive the vulgarity, he said, "Boy, it takes some balls to put yourself out there that way," right? And so I think when you can just get to the place, what a way to be found out, exactly. When you can get to the place where you just surrender to the creativity, that's when your best work comes out. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's what do you think, Vivi?
For me as a newer DM, I think the challenging thing for me was in the beginning, I was prepping too much. And I think the problem was, and I think that's kind of the issue that, Amanda, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're having too, because I thought that it had to go in line with exactly what it was. Because what I did was I ran a module. So at least I kind of had something in mind. In that sense, it felt like I had to prep everything and everything had to go exactly the way it said in the book, which it necessarily doesn't. Like my last session that I DM'd, for example, I was introducing 2 new characters to an already existing campaign where they were already halfway through. And this is module 2. And so I was kind of running them behind, just saying like, "Oh yeah, you're trying to meet up with your friends." And then I was kind of running the same campaign again, but just pushing them through a little bit faster, obviously because they had already gone through and they were just kind of already made connections and whatnots. They ended up doing something I was not expecting. And there was literally a moment where I was sitting there like, hiding my screen because I was like, "Oh no, this is like, oh my gosh, like what am I gonna do?" And I literally had that exact same moment where I had full blown like, I have no idea how I'm gonna get them. Like it was just way off the rails. Like they had coerced this guy who they were supposed to see later. They were supposed to go in the mine and the mine was supposed to collapse and they weren't supposed to be able to see this guy again. But because they were coming up behind, they saw him, they encountered him, and they're like, "You're going to take us to the town," and forced his hand. And of course they all rolled. That's when they all rolled their nat 20s. And,
Right.
And I'm bringing them into town. And now, and how I described it was, you guys are trying to, it was a chase, and that chase wasn't supposed to happen until a little bit later, but I made do with the situation that I was at hand. The more you do it and the more you DM, I find the more flexible you are and the more you realize to kind of think on the fly. And I honestly think that with DMing and playing D&D, my I don't even know how to word that, but like the fact I'm a lot faster at being able to think on the fly because
Absolutely.
I am a DM and because people throw things at you left, right, and center that you do get better at it with time. And like kind of John said, like, don't feel like just because that's the way it is in the book, you have to stick to it. Like,
Never.
For example, like if you're DMing a module and you find that they're just blowing through that encounter, add more, have people run away and come back.
What Pat Draw said, every problem can be solved with an elder dragon.
Exactly. But like, so my players were basically driving a semi truck. The thing I said to them was, I said, you guys are driving a semi truck down the Macy's Day Parade is basically what you're doing. Nobody's gonna, they're like, "Oh, everybody should move out of the way." I'm like, yeah, but I mean, a lot of things are happening right now. So if you're trying to drive a semi truck down the Macy's Day Parade, people will move, but it's going to be slow and you guys aren't going to be able to. And I made them roll a lot of the times for no reason, but just because I needed time to think. And I mean, like,
I love that. I love that. And Natasha in the chat, or August speaking for Natasha, said she made 2 signs for her DM screen. One was a buffering sign and the other was essentially like the clippy paper clip. So she had some time to figure out or get her terrain out.
That's amazing. I love that.
I love that.
I love that.
That's fantastic.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Sorry, go ahead,
in a
Rob.
world where I think there are too many roles called for, that's a brilliant reason to call a roll.
Yeah,
For-
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Just to buy yourself time. But because here's the thing. I mean, and you mentioned you're running published adventures, and you have all this prep work, and I mean, prep work. As long as you don't make yourself beholden to your prep work, and force yourself to find a way to use it, it's always going to be there. You can always pull it out another time. Here's the thing: your players, unless you're running an adventure that they've done 20 different times before, they don't know what's in the adventure. They don't know. They don't know who they're supposed to meet. They don't know when this person. They don't know where this person's supposed to show up. They don't know who has the information that they need. If they go off the rails, go out. I mean, you can find somewhere else some other way to get them what they need to be doing. And it's don't worry about. I mean, you already have it, but don't worry about what's in the adventure. Worry about what you need to do to get the story moving, if possible. But have it pop up somewhere else. Like like for one shots, my one shots, I plan for 2, maybe 3 combats at most.
Yeah.
And if there's a third combat, I can guarantee you that third combat is probably happening within the first 5 minutes of the adventure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a great way to get it in early, and I find I rarely have time for 3 combats. And if there's a good BBEG combat, even if it's run with efficiency, is going to take an hour. It will. But I want to come back to something Vivi said a moment ago in terms of D&D helping you think more quickly. It's very funny you mentioned that, because I have often espoused this game as a teaching tool because of what it did for me as a child. I have been in leadership roles in the corporate world, and I think a lot of what I learned came from D&D, the ability to communicate with people, develop vocabulary, read, assimilate information, think quickly, organize groups, take leadership, deal with chaos, handle conflict. All of these things are taught at the gaming table. Blue Box was born, I had stopped playing for several years. And then my kids were 5 and 8. And I thought, you know what? This helped me so much. I want my kids to play this game. So I started playing games in my house with my 5 and 8-year-old kid. Fast forward 13 years later, we're still playing, and my son Jordan says, Dad, you need to stream this on Twitch, and Blue Box is born. You absolutely will get better at thinking quickly, thinking on your feet. But I think a lot of this idea of whether you love to be a DM or whether you just love to be a player is how much you really enjoy being pushed to think immediately, quickly, improv on your feet. If you don't love that, you're probably going to enjoy being a player more, because it will limit the scope of that improv that's required. As a DM, they're going to throw anything at you. Vivi?
Oh my gosh, yes, everything and anything at you that you don't expect. Honestly, and that's, again, like, as a DM, you just have to just take your time, be easy on yourself, and like Robert said, like, everybody's here to have a good time. You know what I mean? Like, try not to put too much pressure on yourself, even though I know it's hard to do, but at the end of the day, they always have fun. And honestly, the funniest moments that I've ever had as a DM were things that just happened off the rails, that were not planned at all. And that's the stuff that my players talk about all the time, is the stuff that you don't have planned. You know what I mean? And like, it's I don't know, it's awesome to just do that. So.
It absolutely is. And Rob, I know we got a couple questions in chat that we're going to answer from Amanda. They're good ones. And yes. I actually have we're going to do some rapid fire ideas here in a moment, because we don't have a ton of time. I'm going to tell one other quick story though about where I think a player can take this idea too far. I was getting my hair cut about a month ago, and the gal who was washing my hair before the haircut, I forget how we got on the topic, and somehow mentioned that she played D&D, and I was asking her about it. And she was a new player, probably 22 years old. And she said, yeah, we really gave our DM fits in our last game. He had everything prepared, and we were going through a market. We saw a fish on the fish stall, and so we all just started mourning the death of this fish on the fish stall. And then we went and we had a funeral for the fish, and we all just really blew up his game having a funeral for this dead fish in the fish stall. Okay. You know what? Last time at my table. That's not the kind of doing thing. Now, I suppose if one of them is an aquatic druid, and this particular fish was a symbol of their. I mean, if there's a real in-game role play reason for it, but just randomly deciding to have a funeral for a fish in the fish market and make that the focus of the game, I'm not saying that's bad. That's just not the game that I want to play at my table. Rob, do you disagree?
I for that kind of story, I need more context.
That's all the context I got.
I mean, because here's the thing: there was a running joke. Oh God, I can't even remember what his name was. But there was a running joke about you can have all your preparation plans and everything else, and it is the thing as a DM that you kind of throw off as kind of something in the background. And that will be for whatever reason, and maybe it's because the players catch you just kind of throwing it in the background, and they think there's a bigger, especially if they're suspicious of your motives on anything, they'll assume that there's something there's there. So you have it was something like Sam Sporkle, the most interesting goblin in the world.
Yeah,
he was just supposed to be this character that's just kind of just there, and all the players are convinced that this is where we're supposed to be spending our time. This is where we're supposed to be focusing on. I mean, as far as like a funeral for a fish, I don't know. There comes a point where I'd go with it as a DM for a session, and then I'd have a conversation with my players.
That's right.
Afterwards, and figure out how we got here. Is this the kind of game that you want to run? Because it may not be the type of game the DM wants to run. I don't know. I don't know who their DM is, or what the plan initially was. Because I mean, you can, as a DM, you can have fun with that.
Yeah, you can.
If you're able to have fun with that.
Yeah,
go for
you
it.
can.
But it requires a conversation after the fact.
Yeah, and just the level of depth that you want to have in your games. You can absolutely have fun with that, but if it's really a slapstick style that you're looking to play, then play that and find a table that's what you want to play. I'm not throwing shade at that. It's just not.
For sure.
I love humor. I love innuendo. I love going off the rails, but I don't want slapstick. That's just not the kind of game I want to play.
Yeah, and that's why session 0 was important too. Yeah, just to kind of figure out what you're looking for in regards to a DM and the game, right?
Right. Have someone come up and buy the fish in the middle of the funeral. Okay. All right. So let's quickly rapid fire some ideas to Amanda's question. Where do you get inspiration? So I liked a lot of what's in this article. I jotted down some notes. But one of the best ones is talking to other DMs. I could not agree more. I do this all the time. I like to call it the muse, the concept of the artist's muse that you can bounce things off of. So have people that you can talk to for new ideas, what resources they use, what techniques work best for them. So I'll talk to members of this community. I'll sometimes ask my players, depending on the situation. For example, with Greyhawk Awakening Book 1, as we wound down in Hamlet, I reached out to a couple of the players and said, hey, we only have a couple of sessions left. It's kind of awkward where it's ending. What would you guys like to see your characters accomplish or get involved with here in these last couple sessions before it goes on ice? But I regularly talk to Jay. I'll call Jay. I'll ask him questions. Others have volunteered, like Greg Justinius. He's in the chat. I'll bounce things off of him. I've talked to Robert on occasion. I'll reach out to like Carlos Lysing. I bounce a lot of things off Anna B. Meyer when I'm talking about Greyhawk. And I find oftentimes it doesn't really even necessarily, I don't mean to be disparaging to any of the people. I'm like, it doesn't have to be someone who knows a lot. Sometimes just talking your stuff out with somebody else gives you ideas. Vivi, Rob?
Oh yeah, I agree. Again, like just refreshing things. For me, in your example with a big bad that I had at a homebrew, I was just like, okay, I don't know if his story is driving it hard enough. And then, we kind of bounce some ideas off. Other things that I get inspiration from, video games, any kind of cartoon anime things that I'm watching, I'm just like, dang, that's a really good, for example, in Hogwarts Legacy, there was the Merlin trials, and there's these things that are around that, little puzzles that you have to figure out. And I was like, oh, I like that. Do you know what I mean? And you just kind of take that and you just put that in your little book of things that I want to add to a game or whatever that might be interesting. Or there's the inspiration with anything that you see, like like I say, video games, shows that you see, and you're like, hey, that's actually a cool idea for like a one shot, or a cool idea for a campaign or whatever. So that's a lot of the inspiration where I get stuff from.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean,
the quiet static is coming from my mic. I know what it is. I just don't want to fix it right now on stream. So I'm sorry. We'll just deal with it for the next few minutes. Go ahead, Rob. Thank you.
I mean, there's so much, especially between all the books that I've read, all the DMs that I've all the DMs that I've talked to, all the players that I've had, all the adventures that I've bought over the years, even some that I never ever actually got to run, but still just took ideas from them, turned them into something else. And sometimes it's just reusing the stuff that you've done with the new group.
Yeah, like your one shots. Back to Vivi's point earlier, there's nothing that says you can't take a one shot you did 2 years ago and recycle it with a different group of players.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I did, while I was at GaryCon, I did 3 official sessions, but I did 1 side session, and one of my players was Wily Hobbit, and he's a long time big Greyhawk aficionado, but he's normally the DM for those things. He doesn't get to play in that world. So I did a variation on Village of Hamlet for him because I knew it was something he was going to get a kick out of, and I knew his players, hadn't gotten to experience it either. So that, I switched it up a little bit, so it wasn't the same exact thing, but knowing what your players like too is huge.
Yep.
Being able to things that they can relate to.
Yep. So Greg
sure.
Justinius in the chat is one of the ones I mentioned, and he popped in the chat. If anyone wants to contact him for ideas, he's very open to it, and Greg has been very useful for that. It's just one good way to do it. Then what you're talking about, media, popular media, movies, video games, cartoons.
Honestly, yeah.
TV shows. They don't even have to be in the genre. You can be watching something that's a Western. You can be watching a murder mystery. And if you have that DM's eye, you'll come up with ideas or concepts for your games. So those are always a constant source. We're going to kind of rapid fire some of this here.
Okay.
One idea. Sorry, go ahead, Vivi. Were you say something?
No, I just said okay. I'm just agreeing.
So, brainstorming. So sit down and just throw ideas out with a group of people. That's a good way to do it. No, nothing is too crazy. What that does, there are certain psychological things that occur when you have a non-judgmental idea brainstorming session. You'll start bubbling up to the surface things that would maybe that little 5-year-old with a crayon would have done, that 35-year-old who's concerned with the social anxiety of how people will look at him won't. And if you can create a safe environment to do that, that's a great way to get ideas out. Using prompts like prompt lists online, coming up with your own prompts. You can just Google things, or now highly would recommend using a tool like ChatGPT, not to develop your adventure for you, but you can go into ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm in the Greyhawk town of Hamlet. I'd like 5 adventure ideas based on the common year 587. And it's just going to spit out they're just prompts. And you can see if any of those prompts speak to you, and then you can grab it and build ideas around it. It can be just a simple Google. It can be a movie that you watch.
Oh, yeah. I had an app that on my phone that was had little prompts too, like things that would be on like the bulletin board for like just like odds and end jobs and stuff like that. I threw one of those up too, and I was just like, oh yeah, these are the jobs, and then just kind of ran with it and made it up. Like this one, the prompt was like this old lady has a ruckus going on in her attic and she can't figure out what it is. She'd ask her husband to go and deal with it, but the old bastard up and died on her. So like, that's exactly what the prompt was. And so like I was just like, okay, cool, run with it. I had 3 players, a murder hobo, my good player, like, my do-gooder, and then one that kind of could go either way. My do-gooder took the job, and I was just like, I wonder what could be up there,
Yep.
When she got up there, and because she was my do-gooder, I just said, oh, maybe it's the ghost of the husband, just like, because she called him an old bastard. I'm like, oh, maybe it'll be just him just causing a ruckus up there. And so she tried to, like, buy him off, but he's a ghost. He doesn't need anything, right? So he was just like, so I was just trying to figure out, like, where am I going to go from here?
I won't go till you give me some dignity.
Yeah, so I just said, and because she was my do-gooder, I said, oh, okay, yeah, it's, I said, my wife killed me. I need you to, like, whatever, kill my wife.
Please,
and I'll leave.
Kill my wife, please.
I honestly thought she was just gonna be like, no, I'm not doing that. She's my do-gooder. You know what she ended up doing? She ended up leaving, finding the murder hobo, and coming back. And they tried to break into her place 3 times. So talking about things that go off the rails that you weren't expecting, that.
No, so true. And Greg had a good point in chat. By the way, also, Joffrey's been mentioning there are websites out there. I'm going to show you a couple Reddits in a moment. But you got like places like Dice Songs. There are a lot of got a lot of great ideas. A lot of people on Instagram, they post story hooks and ideas all the time. So there are many places that you can get those. I'm going to show you guys.
You know, it's weird.
Go ahead.
It's kind of strange. I have no idea why, but I don't like going to those kind of. Maybe it's just me. It's weird.
Personal
I like getting
preference.
ideas from either from my players, things I know they like, or things that I've already done. I can ever, and I don't understand why, can't ever get into like just completely third party adventure ideas. I don't know. I don't understand. It's kind of weird.
And no one shall force you to, Robert.
No one
It's just I listen to it. It's like I don't know why, but I've never gotten into using those type of sites.
I don't use I don't use any of these like these Reddits and things I'm showing either. In fact, I found them today. But they're a source, and there may be people out there. We all learn differently. You know, we all have different learning styles and things that speak to us. So this is just an idea, a tool. I'd never seen these subreddits before until today, but this one was kind of fun. So this was from the DM Academy. They posted some subreddits. One is a subreddit for imaginary monsters, images created by talented artists. And this guy said, I look at this, and every week I get an idea for something. And that's always been something I've seen as a DM. Maybe it's a miniature that you have. I've built stories around cool minis that I had, and I wanted to use them on the table, or fun terrain. I used to, when I was younger, going through the Fiend Folio or the Monster Manual, like, ooh, that's awesome. I can figure out a game to play. So this could be a tool. You just constantly look at, new monster ideas, and maybe you get something. Or another one, I thought this was fun. This one's a subreddit for random tables for DMs by DMs. And they just post all kinds of different tables that you can use as a DM. And you've got a table of tables, and you've got dungeon room inspirations, and different, petty squabble. I love this one, the petty squabble generator. So I clicked that link, and this is fun. So here's your petty squabble generator. You roll a d20, you pick what it is. So it's the abbot, the baker, the blacksmith, the brewer. By the way, some of this is a little bit vulgar. Wronged me by catcalling, cavorting, ferrying, cursing my childs, drying up my cows, getting my dog pregnant. And they are a werewolf, are different for us, are possessed by a demon, didn't reciprocate. I won't read that there. You can see it. Frightened my children, revealed themselves to me. So I demand a public wicking, a stockading, a confessing publicly that they be hobbled, imprisoned forever, stoned, thrown into the river. And then there's an insult. You beef-witted louse, you churlish stamp crab. It just, there's all kinds of stuff like out there. I don't really... I haven't used this stuff, but your mileage may vary. And if these are things that generate fun ideas for you, so be it.
Oh, for sure. Everybody is different and has different DMing styles and the way that they like to do things or how they find inspiration. We're just very lucky to be able to have access to a lot of these different things, whether it be online or like module books, or just being able to be a part of a community where you have access to other DMs that you can talk to if you don't have anybody in your, inner circle that is a DM that you could bounce ideas off of. So, I mean, there's lots of stuff out there for you to find inspiration if that's what you're looking for.
And one thing you can do, I mean, never be afraid to do a pop culture mashup for a one shot. Probably one of my favorite adventures that I ever ran on Blue Box. And I don't remember whether it was just a one shot because you weren't here or what it was, but it was a mashup of Doctor Who, Alice in Wonderland, and Robin Hood. And it was very, very thinly veiled, but the whole concept was a wizard's tower that the wizard had kind of gone missing, and strange things had happened there. So it's like you can just get weird. A one shot's a great time, a great way to get weird.
I honestly wanted to do a kind of like a play on Weeping Angels from Doctor Who once too. I still want to do it, but it's just such a cool idea, you know? Like I'm just like, oh, that'd be so great.
Love it, love it. Alexander, the dinosaurs can come. All we have to do is hit 100 viewers on any stream or a level 5 hype train, and the dinosaurs come out. Real quickly here, I got a lot more I want to talk about before we conclude, but Vivi, we're all super excited you're here. You can see it in the chat. You do look 10 years younger. This has already been so good for you. I'm so happy for you.
Oh, it's been great. Yeah.
Then a couple other things we have coming up. So then next week, of course, you know, it is session 0 of Greyhawk Awakening, Book 3, The Sea of Dark Sun, the most ambitious, most fantastic. It is going to be the most incredible book of Greyhawk Awakening and the most ambitious thing we have ever done on Blue Box. This is your chance to be part of something new, to be part of something spectacular. In this session 0, we're going to talk about the lore behind why this sits in the sea of dust that exists in the southern Flyness, the area destroyed, the Sewell Empires vanishing in the rain of colorless fire. As I mentioned last night, I have such luminaries as Anna B. Meyer, Carlos Lysing, and Jay, Lord Gazumba, that have worked with me on some of the concepts, making sure that, because it just fits so, as one, it was actually Carlos that said this concept works so perfectly for what the Sea of Dust would have been and the way the Sewell Empire vanished, the power of some of these Sewell mages and what they could do. It all is analogous with Athos, with the Sorcerer Kings. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how this will work in the world. Some of the economy, the mechanics are going to change. And then you're going to meet a little bit, just little snippets about all the players and their characters. It's going to be a fun time. We'll talk about the rules, some important things that we're going to talk about, topics that will be covered in this, which are sensitive topics and have to be covered correctly in any game or campaign, and we'll talk about that next week as well. Of course, among those, we have 2 new players. One is Ashlyn, the Dollar Store DM. You've seen her many times here now on Blue Box. We just cannot get rid of her. There's a private in-character chat between her and Manda that I have access to, all the admins, the mods have access to. It literally has around 50 messages a day that they are posting back and forth in this IC chat. It's hard for me to keep up with. They are so invested, and I've already mentioned, of course, the other is Manda, Mystical Unicorn. She will be playing Anala, a super cool character, and these 2 characters are already intertwined. That's why they're doing a private IC chat before the game started. They really twisted my arm to be able to start playing before the game was even due. And so if you haven't seen it yet, this is the trailer. So the session 0 is next Tuesday night. And then session 1, the launch of the campaign, comes on 5/2. It's probably going to cut. No, it's right there. It is. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. 5/2. All the music is custom. In fact, Joffrey, you've seen him in the chat. He's actually doing a final master of that piece, sort of extended, which will be the, I do that every stinking time, be the core piece for the ongoing game. And then there's all kinds of other sort of theme-specific things. So please tune in for those. And then last thing I want to mention is that we do have next week, in keeping with that, we have a very special guest. We're going to be joined by this guy. This is Mark. Mark Hope goes by the handle Logarium, and he's been running a Dark Sun themed campaign for over 2 years now on Lawful Stupid, and I've talked to him several times. We're going to talk about that setting, in particular psionics, which is not something you see a lot of in D&D these days. It's not baked into 5e yet, and so 5e players really have not had exposure to psionics, and there aren't a lot of settings which feature it, and it is very prominent in this game. And so we're going to cover a little bit about Dark Sun as a whole with him next Wednesday night, but also specifically dive into psionics. So please check all those things out. All right. Back to our list of things here. I wanted to show you guys just a couple other items. So how
we do have another pin question.
Oh, yes.
We do have a pin question. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what gets you most excited about DMing? Let's handle that first, and then I'll come to this. So, Rob, let's start with you. What gets you most excited about DMing?
Just basically getting to interact with my players. I mean, there's no better feeling than when your players show up to start with. getting going and listening to the role play beginning, the excitement, hearing the changes in their attitude as you like bring new characters in, and watching them react to you. It's always a feel good thing.
Yeah. Well said. I also want to give a shout out real quickly before Vivi answers that question. You see, I was just talking about that third book, that guy Baldrax. Baldrax actually, he's an incredible creator. So as you know, we're going to continue. We feature, like you saw last night, we do theater of mind, long sections where there are no visuals. It's just pure TOM. But we also bring VTT tools like Tailspire and then physical terrain. We're going to have all of that for book 3. Baldrax specifically does procedurally generated terrain. So he creates these gorgeous biomes in Tailspire that are cued with, I don't even know exactly how he sets it up, but he built this algorithm that then lays these tiles in the correct formats to create these biomes in minutes that would take somebody hours to build. And he's doing all of this just out of the goodness of his heart. He's a super cool guy, and thank you very much for being in the chat tonight. Vivi, what gets you excited about DMing?
It depends if I have like a story that I'm really excited to, or like a storyline that I'm really excited to run. One of the things for sure that's top on my list is seeing the creativity that unfolds in solving something that could be very straightforward and simple, and how your players just take that and run with it, and just, it's like I would never have thought that they would ever solve it in that way, in that manner, and they do, and that's always such an exciting thing to do. As you're DMing, it's a collaborative storytelling, so it's nice to see them get into the story that you're telling and really like lean into it and become a part of it and make it part of their backstory, and things like that. Other things that excite me are when I roll dice behind the screen and you see panic in their eyes. They're like, "Why are you doing that? What is that? What is that?" Or also just when they're really feeling it, and the best thing is after you run a session and they're still talking about it.
Yes.
It's just nothing is a greater feeling than when they're still just on that riding that high of playing that game, and they still talk about it right after the session, and they're just so looking forward to next session to continue on with the story. So those are definitely
I love Vivi. I could not agree with you more. I think you nailed that question. Greg said villain speeches excite him. I like that. Tom said he just likes to have fun with his players and help them have a good time. Yeah,
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say for me, I have called this game the game of endless wonder. And what I mean by that is that, my personality, I don't rewatch movies a lot. I can reread a book, but it has to be several years. And I've found that most forms of entertainment, they cap out, they get boring over time. I'll play a game for a while, I'll give it up. I'll play a video game for a while. I think the last game I finished was Skyrim. I don't really have a lot of time, and I don't do a lot of video gaming. And anything else that you do, whether it's you engage in a substance, you drink alcohol, you do whatever, you're always going to need more and more and more to chase that high. D&D, to me, there is a thrill, there is a wonder that I have felt in this game from the time I was 8 years old. And it doesn't come out in every session, but sometimes it comes out. And what I love, what I get excited about DMing is finding ways to bring out that moment, that sense of wonder, that enthusiasm that winds up having your players talking about it, extensively, gets them excited. When I see players so invested in book 3 and all the work that's going into it and all their writing, just cannot wait to TPK them in session 2 and have to pay for all new art from Hob.
I was gonna say you have session 0, session 1, and then 5.9 re-rolled new characters.
Exactly. Well, they're already all talking about rolling backup characters too. So
I mean, smart. Been there.
Sea of Dust, Dark Sun. Yeah, probably good idea.
Mentat Muse.
I think that goes back to what Robert was saying about, and kind of what you're saying too, John, about how you don't want to rewatch or reread books unless it's been a long time. The thing with like Rob said about reusing old one shots is that you're characters and your players are different, and the way that it could be the same story, but it's not going to play out the exact same way by any means, because it's always different, and it doesn't matter if it's the same story. It's going to be different every time you run it.
That's exactly right, and that's why I call it the game of endless wonder. There's always something new. There's always something different. It's never stale. So 5 quick self-care tips for DMs. Develop a preparation ritual before you sit down. Have a prep ritual that makes you. So Robert talked about how he takes that breath. That for him is a big part of his ritual. Maybe you draft up an outline. Maybe just having a bulleted outline is good for you. Honestly, I find many times all I need for prep. If I just have a few bullet points on a sheet of paper that I can reference, that helps me kind of feel like I have some anchored context for where I'm going.
Index cards are a beautiful thing.
Index cards, graph paper, or
sticky notes to your screen. Your DM screen is
or what you really need is one of these gorgeous blue box 5x8 notebooks with the grid paper inside them. These things are awesome. I'm already taking my notes and writing out all my stuff in here. And
can you hold that closer to the screen for us? No, I meant open.
Oh yeah. No, sorry. Sorry, I was a little bit slow on the uptake there, Vivi.
That's okay.
And by the way, I always mention this, everything on the merch store is zero profit to Blue Box. Any profit goes to St. Jude Children's Hospital. So I'm not repping merch for money. So the second one they have here is getting organized behind the screen. So a huge stressor for some dungeon masters is lack of organization. That's all your personality. Some people thrive in chaos. Some people like a little organization. Some people like a lot of organization. So your mileage will vary here, but figure out what works for you and organize yourself. I generally find environment affects attitude. So I like to surround myself with environments that create the kind of attitude. Like a lot of this game room, it's not just for Twitch, or it also gets me in a place where I feel like I'm ready to DM. Don't be hesitant to indulge. Food, sweets, opening a bottle of wine at the table. Again, that's your choice. Making time for breaks and bathroom breaks. Don't focus on mistakes. Things will get screwed up. Safety tools, the kind of the safe words, those sorts of things, decompression, and sometimes just taking time off. Now, I'll just threw those out there real quick. I want to ask about this. So this is a site I found called Only on Tuesdays. And they said here, it's hard to tell yourself that you aren't enjoying the game. You're enjoying it. So what exactly is burnout? He asked Death McGuns, DM. I think the only reason for burnout is not taking much as you're giving. Wait, where's the there's a... here it is. This is the quote. As far as I'm concerned, burnout is inevitable for a long-time DM. Do you agree with that, Robert?
No, not at all.
I don't either.
I'm not... let's put it this way. I can now...
Pat says yes.
When it comes to burnout, I mean, if you're talking about burnout being a GM in general, I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. It doesn't... I don't know that I've ever had burnout as a DM overall. I've gotten to the point where I've had campaigns where I've realized I needed to shut them down because they're just the story for them has kind of dried up and we need to do something new. But I've never said, I just don't feel like DMing anymore. I need a break. I'm always looking for the next group, the next party, the next campaign.
Hey, Rob, I want to. I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you for a second. I want to address something in the chat. So I'm sure it wasn't meant this way, but to say that burnout equals cop-out, Joffrey, no, we don't want to say that. That is not fair. Everyone's experience is different. And so, for example, if you're someone like Pat66, you may go through certain situations and circumstances that for you actually get you to an emotional and mental place where you don't feel like you want to do this anymore. And that's not necessarily a cop-out. I think that's a pejorative way to put that. Now, personally, what I'm really taking issue with is that the quote was, "It's inevitable." You will, and I don't think it is. I think a DM can stay ever fresh if a DM is doing some of the things we've talked about here. If they have friends that they're talking to, if they have that muse they bounce ideas off to, if they're reading and watching movies and engaging in creative pop culture, if they have good players at their table, my goodness, you cannot overestimate how important. If you have good players as a DM, you can almost roll the soccer ball out there and just kind of
let them go.
And that is, and then if you can provide the scaffolding for them, like again, I come back to like the Tuesday or the Sunday campaign right now with Tears of Air, 4 fantastic role players, a setting that I built an elaborate lattice work for, but many times all I have to let them do is they just play in it, and then I'm pulled in at certain spots where they need that NPC input or they need that direction or lore. That is so easy. Other times I've had groups of players, you have to pull them along. Yeah, you're just kind of like, come on, pull it. That's more work for a DM. I think if I played with that kind of group all the time, yeah, I'd probably want to break.
I mean, and it's possible, I mean, I can see a DM getting burnout. I mean, because especially if you're feeling that emotional weight of making sure your players are having fun, and you feel the onus is really on you. That's a heavy weight to bear.
Right.
It's, and especially if you have this, and it's not necessarily that you have a bad party, or bad players, but some groups are more reliant on the DM than others to bring the story, to bring the fun. And I can see where for DM, yeah, you can get burned out on it, but that's not an issue I've ever had to worry about. I can certainly understand those DMs who have had it happen to them. Pat mentioned that he suffered from it. Sure, yeah, it can be a weight, especially when there are no other options. If you've been DMing for a group and there's no one else who's going to take those reins, so there's not even a hope of getting a break, that can certainly be rough. Sure.
100%. And I think also, like, as if you are the forever DM, then your players aren't willing to or wanting to take that role just to kind of give you a break. They should understand that, like, it is a lot for you to take, and understand the fact that maybe you do need a break or whatever. I've talked about burnout a lot before in the hobby community, and I mean, like I said, like,
there's a poll up, by the way.
Yes.
There's a poll up.
So a hobby, by definition, is something that you do in leisure for pleasure. So I mean, like, if you're doing it, if it's a hobby and it's no longer, you're supposed to be doing that as a sense of enjoyment. Like, you have a lot of stress in your life,
right,
regardless, work, life, things like that. You have to remember to take care of yourself and think about self-care as well. Like, a hobby is fun. If you're doing D&D as a de-stressor and that's your fun and that's your night out, like your one night out a month or a week or whatever have you, be it, like, you have to understand that, like, don't put that much pressure on yourself, and realize that the people who you are running games for should also understand that as well, and understand the fact that you might need a break if you're kind of hitting that wall, and just, like it says, some of those self-care things, like in my situation, I'm very lucky to be able to have I have 2 DMs in my group. So, like, there's a lot of discussion between the two of us before a Friday night even starts. It's like, hey, do you feel like DMing, or are you kind of not in that mindset right now? And and the other will take over if the other one is. And honestly, there's times where we just get together and hang out and play board games instead, because we just neither of us have the mental capacity to DM and run a game at that time, and that's okay. And it's an understanding that we have, and it helps us kind of avoid that, like, burnout, whether it's creativity or whatever it may be. But again, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. And if other people are putting pressure on you, then that's something that you definitely need to have a discussion about, and just say, like, hey, either you can DM for me while I kind of take a break and take a seat back. And if that's something that you're not wanting to do, then just understand that I just need to take a break. Like, let's hang out and play board games or do something else instead,
Right.
As always check in with yourself. Self-care is huge. I'm a huge advocate for health self-care. And like I said, it's a hobby. You do it, in your leisure time for pleasure. So make sure that that's top and key. D&D should be fun for everybody, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's a reason why I am not currently running a campaign on stream. I don't, as much as I want to. I've got all kinds of ideas, all kinds of energy, or all kinds of want to do it, but I don't have the time, the energy, the and all the other stuff that goes into it. I'd love to be running multiple campaigns on stream, but I don't have somebody doing artwork. I don't have, there is nobody else. So it's like I had to realize that this isn't happening right now. I've got the ideas in place, but it's not going to happen until I've got what I need in place to make sure that it works.
Yeah, and no, we totally get that, and we all have like these seasons and times of life, and I'm not going to lie, it is a lot of energy. And of course, when I started Blue Box and started streaming, I had nothing. I had no art. I had a table with really cheesy looking terrain stuff, and like you can find the original Blue Box streams. They're still on YouTube. It's pretty lame, but we start somewhere. Thank you so much, Wayne, for the gift subs. By the way, thank you for the raiders that popped in. We appreciate that, and we're at 2,399 followers. Will somebody give us a follow and get us to 2,400? You can be our 2,400th follower tonight. Just click that little heart button. It's actually free. It's crazy. They don't even charge you for it here on Twitch. But thank you very much, Wayne, for the gift subs, and welcome to our raiders. All right, Vivi, I'm going to give you the final word as we get set to raid into Jay tonight.
Oh, I don't know what to say. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you enjoy me being part of the LMA team. Thank you to Robert and John for allowing me to grace your presence with me.
Ow.
Ow. Pinching him.
Twisting his arm.
Twisted.
Arm twist.
Yeah.
Arm twisted, yeah.
It's terrible. I tell you.
In regards to the topic and the session and stuff like that, me not playing D&D for a while just because of my work situation has really like amped up that creativity, and now everything I see is like, oh, that'd be a good session. Oh, that'll be good. Like it's kind of just where I'm at right now in regards to that. I'm excited to be here on Wednesdays. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Yeah, excited to see what Loremasters was going to look like with me and my tomfoolery.
No, we want the tomfoolery, and we're going to have a lot of fun topics here. And Vivi, I speak. I know for everyone, you saw the poll was overwhelming. Only Chip voted no, but he said it was opposite day in his house.
I know.
I saw that you gave him. You gave him the heart that you taught me.
Yes. Yes.
But as we raid into Jay, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of our followers. Thank you for everyone who's supporting us. We will be back with Tears of Aird on Sunday. At 1 p.m. Central. We will have Friday Night Crusades this Friday at 7 p.m. Central in our Discord. So check those out. And I think this might even be a Fall of Red Dawn week.
I believe it should be.
I believe it is. In fact, I think they might be doing back-to-back. I think they might be doing, I think they are. I think they're doing this week and next week. So we're going to have what Manda calls the mega streams on Sunday back-to-back. Session 0 of Greyhawk Awakening. Tom from Lawfuls. We just have and then I got Michael from Pharaohborn coming in on the 26th. We're going to do an item build battle where we're going to build custom magic items on our LMA on the 26th, Vivi. We're going to build custom magic items, custom rules, homebrew spells, and he's going to show us how to do that, and we're going to have a battle. We're all going to do that together live on stream. That's going to be
we're having a battle?
We're having a battle.
Going down.
You're going down. All right, guys. Rating J now. Blue Box signing out. And
we're out.
And